And a happy Wednesday to you. Welcome from Seattle, Washington. We're glad to have you here for the Forza Racing Championship 2018. It's going to be Series 1. This is the Wednesday Showdown on with Alley Tack. Tanner Foust is joining us, the guy that's won everything, the guy that makes Alley feel like he's really achieved nothing in his life. We're glad to have you here, Tanner.
Well, I mean, you got to have. That's my goal anyway. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, you're just here to rub that in a bit. It's fine. It's fine. I'll deal.
Thanks for having me.
We're glad to have you here. He's going to be bringing us a different perspective all throughout the day. We got North America, we got Europe, we got a lot of great racing. We're kicking it off here today.
We're kicking it off, and it's all about the world rankings now. All these drivers out here, it's their first chance to spar against each other a little bit, get that pecking order right, and we'll see with the points after this who's at the top of the table.
Well, they've been racing throughout the week to get to this Wednesday Showdown, and my good friend Mellish is going to bring you up to date about what happened in North America.
In the North American online regionals, new reputations were about to be established. 400 whittled down to the last 24, including privateers earning that recognition from the pro team drivers and got to butt heads against the best. Dominant performances from both Seattle pre-seasonal invitational drivers TX3 Lightning and F4H Venom both earned a full house of victories, from Sebring in the Corvette to the Ferrari F40 Competizione at Silverstone, and being able to hold off the likes of Harmonic, F4H Revs and even F4H Diablo. They triumphed big style, scoring maximum points heading into the Wednesday shows. By the last race though, the rest of the field were hungry for points, Harmonic being one of the casualties of the first corner war, and we're seeing further down the pack, but with his liquid driving abilities managed to secure a 4th place that will see him surely progress through to the next stage. This was definitely an exhibition of talent from the top drivers, and ones to look out for in the later stages of the RC.
So that was North America, and let's take one step back here, Allie. This is how these guys have to get here. They have to go through a gauntlet to even get to the Wednesday Showdown.
They do, and it's shadow boxing. That's what we're seeing there. It's F4H Venom and TX3 Lightning. These two guys, they're not able to race each other because they're in different semi-final lobbies, but they're just, I'm going to win this race, I'm going to win this one. So little between them, and so that's going to be an exciting matchup for this afternoon.
Tanner, these guys are really fast.
You know, it never stops. I'm constantly impressed. It really is so professional, the level of driving. And like you said, I mean, any tiny mistake has such huge repercussions, especially when the competition level is so high, just like in any racing. And to see them go at it, you know, it's one thing to take care when you're buying the parts and when you're getting injured if you do crash it, and it's another thing to have the discipline to still be fast, minimize mistakes, and take care of your car when it doesn't hurt when you crash.
Well, we also had some European racing going on, and Mellish took us up to date through that.
Across the pond, AMS Roadrunner was the next to make it 3 of a kind, finishing top in his lobby in each race. Meanwhile, Lage was finding it difficult to follow in his footsteps, making it 2 out of 3 after Box putting in a stellar performance at Sebring and taking the first win of the day. The skill gap was so marginal at times it could have been split by a hair width. AMS Roadrunner and G2 Lage were the titans fighting off the demigods TPR Box, JSR Rossi and his teammates Commando and Mitch. And once again the privateers were staking their claim, proving that a racing gamer tag doesn't give you those extra horses, and were taking the battle to anyone up and down the field. Unfortunately, however, for some, the day had ended before it even began. Collisions marked with aggression and sheer willpower resulted in the hopes of even finishing the race just simply out of reach. What was more apparent in the EMEA region was the variety of skill in different classes of car. Drivers having different strong suits where the results fluctuated in each race, nearly seeing different drivers hitting the top 5 finishes.
So that was Europe. It's good to see some privateers out there getting the job done.
Yeah, a few privateers out there doing a good job. I mean, it's hard, though, when you got people like Lage, Roadrunner, you know, dominating for victories. I think the massive story there is, you know, Lage, who won the Invitational just last month, not managing to win all of his heat races.
The fact that you have the same names rising to the top is so impressive to me, I think. And it's, You know, it's not easy to maintain that for these guys, but it's been a lot of events over years, really, where these same names have come to rise to the top, and you're just waiting kind of for the young gun, I guess the younger gun, to come and knock them off. But it really is impressive, and the fact that they can just repeat those performances over and over is stellar.
Well, you guys can get involved today throughout the racing at watch.forzarc.com, and of course, we already got a vote going on right now where you guys can decide what the weather's going to be out on their track. Our first track's going to be Sebring. And let's take a look at the results here. And they have gone naughty. They have gone with the rain. They're putting it on them, Allie.
Oh, I can't wait now. Sebring, I mean, Tanner, you've raced there. Like, what's it like in the rain?
Okay, the track's got a, I mean, you would call it a horrible surface, you know, if you're a road worker, but it's a great racing surface because it's incredibly challenging. In the dry, it's incredibly challenging. In the wet, there's puddles that are behind blind corners. Turn 1 has some vicious puddles. You know, you've got this chewed up concrete. You got brand new, very grippy asphalt. You've got some curbs that are more grippy than the actual corners. And when you make it all wet, it turns everything upside down. So this is going to be exciting.
Well, let's go over to Elliott Lyons for more about the track and the car.
Hey, guys, thanks. I can't believe we're back at Sebring again. I mean, it seems like these guys have been racing this track and this car at the same combinations for weeks now. The fact that they're on rain, that's just going to change everything. They've been practicing. They know their lines. They know their braking points. It all changes with all the puddles. The surface types are crazy. We got concrete, new pavement, cracks. Everything's going to be thrown at them. And they've also been racing just for fast times. Now they got to race around people. And they got to do it in this car, right? So we're back in the C7R, the Corvette. It's a finesse car. You know, it's almost, for a GTLM car, it's funny to call it a momentum car. But you really have to work this car around the track and keep the power to the ground. And now it's raining and there's puddles. It's going to be an interesting race to watch.
Appreciate that, Elliott. He's going to be with us throughout the day, giving us updates on cars and tracks. Speaking of cars, you guys can get involved through the polling throughout the day. The next race that's up, you guys can choose the car. We're going to have 2 options. It's going to be the Ferrari F40 or the F50. What's the difference here, Allie?
Yeah, they're quite similar cars in a lot of ways. Mid-engine, rear-wheel drive, lots and lots of power, both of them. And they both supply plenty of that downforce that you want around the fast corners. But the F40, 10 years older, it's a little bit more primitive. It's a little bit more sort of man and machine, whereas the F50 will give you a bit more of a sort of technological advantage as you whip around there. It'll help you out a bit more.
Tanner, you want to push them either way here?
Go for the F40. Come on. I mean, it's just got sharper teeth. It's, you know, the vicious high-boost turbocharger freaking out behind you. And just like you said, some of the old-school technology that car means that when you do it wrong, it bites you pretty hard.
It's going to be interesting seeing what the community picks for that one. We are ready for the first race. We're headed down to Florida. It's going to be Sebring. Let's take a look at the grid. Here for race number 1 on the Wednesday Showdown. Roadrunner out in front, Lage and Box there in third.
Mitch, number 4 there, first driver for JSR, and this is his first appearance at the Forza Racing Championship. So picking up that Jap Speed Racing token and just planting that flag in the sand. I like that a lot.
No, Tanner, I know you always want to be in the pole position, but what's that second place like?
You have the best view of the guy in pole, but you want to be that guy. I mean, you want the target on your back. Some people say they like chasing, but, you know, you'd rather be out in front, I think.
When it comes down to this track, what's going to be at stake here in that first turn, especially with Lage right there on the corner of Roadrunner?
Not a massive run down towards turn 1 from the start here. Not a huge amount of time to get that much speed up, and it's a fast corner as well, so not a lot of braking.
Here we go. It was an old Air Force field in 1947. Tanner mentioned it still has that same concrete that was poured in the 40s. And here we go, race number 1. It's going to be 7 laps around Sebring, 3.74 miles to 6.02 kilometers, and 17 turns of absolute bumps and bruises. And here we go, gentlemen.
Roadrunner down the inside, taking full advantage of that pole position, managing to lead from the front, and it's G2 Lage having to settle for second position. He's now trying to get his rhythm together, get his head composed, and make sure he can catch Roadrunner. He's having a little bit of a kick there out of the first sector.
You know, Roadrunner was the 24-hour Le Mans winner when we were over there in France. This is a guy, Tanner, that some maybe thought that was a fluke, but he's come back and proved it. And, you know, how is that? When you get out there, you know, you win some races, then you start to get that confidence.
You know, that fluke word starts popping up every so often. If you're the underdog and you win, you inevitably get labeled as somebody who may have gotten a little bit lucky, the chips fell your way kind of a thing. But backing it up is really what it's all about. Even winning a championship is more than a fluke, but taking a second championship really is what it's about. So if you can get out in front and do it consistently, then you can really make a future in the sport.
So
Third place. TPR box here. He is Leige's nightmare because Leige wants to be ahead. He wants to be looking up forward, attacking Roadrunner. But this guy in third box is making him defend, making him run those lines on the inside of the track, and he's looking in his mirror rather than looking out his front window.
And Box said on social media this week that he's not worried about the liveries, he's not worried about painting his car. He said, we put more time into practice than we do about making our rides look good.
It's the right way of thinking about it. Box right up there running with the top pack, and that's more than could have been said for him for a lot of his appearances at the ForzaRC recently. So maybe this is a refreshed box, a new box that we're seeing out here at the first race of the championship.
Well, first time into turn 17, you know, this is a very telling turn, and as the race goes on and the conditions change, this is going to be one where it can change the most. There's a lot of places for puddles. It's a very bumpy, fast, high-speed entry into the corner, and that's where a lot of things can get mixed up for sure.
I think that's worth bringing out here that we saw the vote for rain, but it's looking pretty dry out there right now.
Yeah, the guy's getting a nice evening start to the race. You can see how bright the lights are there as they hit the brakes. There's a little bit of a lack of visibility for them to deal with. And yeah, the possibility of rain clouds rolling in across the circuit later on, it'll have them all sitting a little bit less comfortably in the seats of those C7Rs.
There's really two places on this track that you're constantly trying to set up for a pass. One is coming through this 5-6 interchange and trying to make a pass in turn 7 that they're going through right now. And the other one is all the way back on that long straightaway before the bridge, before turn 17. So now with these S's, you just basically have to settle in single file, think about how you're going to get a great exit on turn 16 out onto the back straightaway and try to make a pass there.
And Tanner, like, a question that occurs to me a lot when I'm driving on Forza, like I'm chasing somebody else, I'm trying to measure the gap there and just make sure that I'm okay. And I kind of think, okay, I can do this on Forza, but in real life, you got like to deal with the exhaust fumes of the guy in front, you know, getting in through your radiator, things are hot, you got disturbed air, all this kind of stuff. You know, is that a very tricky part of racing?
Honestly, you don't notice that stuff. It's, you know, sure, you process things a little slower after breathing all of that exhaust fume, but you don't notice that until the next day. That's the great thing about it. No, it's not something you notice. You really have the same mindset that you do in the game. You're trying to be disciplined, trying to see what turns you're better at than the car in front of you, and then plan for the next lap to take advantage.
If you're just joining us, this is race number 1. We're in the 2014. That's the number 3 car. That C7R here on the second lap of Sebring. This is the Wednesday Showdown here in the Series 1 or the Forza Racing 2018. Of course, we've got many more races coming up. This is just the first race of the day.
Look at that line from Roadrunner coming down now to start the third lap, and Roadrunner way on the inside down towards turn 1. He's trying to block Leige out, who wants it around the outside. He's saying, you know, I don't mind which way you go. I'll go the other way. I've got speed on the inside. I've got speed on the outside, and I'll make this move happen. You can see him still on the outside. The last turn here in Sector 1, and Leige is going to make the pass of the century here if Roadrunner can't block him out.
Roadrunner doing a nice job holding him off there on turn 5. They're going to come down the Gurney Bend, headed down toward turn 7, the old hairpin.
If you're going to make a pass, this is the spot. That's so tricky to go side by side through that that complicated 3, 4, 5 section. Doesn't look like, oh, he does. He gets him under braking, but it may be an outside-in move. No, he makes it stick.
Amazingly judged. And you can see the first dots of rain there on the lens. So Leige does the best at changing his driving to suit the conditions out there on the track. He's the one who can measure the braking and just get it right time after time. And that's what makes him the champion at the Invitational and what has put him in the lead here at Sebring.
Well, you voted for it. Here it is in lap 3 of 7. The rain has started to build up here in Sebring. Of course, the track opened in 1950. There's a lot of track changes over the years, but you still got that old surface. You know, they used to fly the old Flying Fortress.
Here is the move. So Roadrunner right on the bumper here. It's very difficult to gain momentum on somebody when you're literally touching the bumper. It gives him a little bit of breathing room. Maybe he can get a cleaner exit out of 16 and carry that momentum down the straightaway. But this is not just a few drops of rain. This is like a Florida monsoon kicking in right now. So turn 17 is going to be treacherous.
It's typical. You're down there on vacation. You think you got a clear day. You got your golf clubs ready to head out there, and there comes that Florida rain.
Somebody's bitter.
That's right, that factor 50 just rolling right off right now. Roadrunner, you can see him pestering Lage though, and I like that. I like that he wants it. He's tapping the bumper, under braking, mid corner. He's just saying, you know, I'm here, don't forget about me. I'm going to come back at that. It's not all your race now, G2 Lage. AMS Roadrunner wants to find his way through.
Getting as close as you can to that wall on turn 1. As we go across the start-finish line once again, lap 4 of 7 now. And let's see, he made a move on Roadrunner on the hairpin. Can Roadrunner return the favor coming back down after the Gurney Bend to turn 7 once again?
Look at these cars just hunkered down on the track. It's the way they just skip through the puddles. Lage still defending. I'm surprised we haven't seen more from Box here. He's been watching this battle up ahead, watching these two scrap, and you can see him getting on the inside of Roadrunner right there at the hairpin. But I'm surprised we're not seeing more of him pestering this leading pack, because every time they're side by side, every time Lage is defending or Roadrunner's attacking, they're losing speed on track, and Box has an opportunity.
We talked about Lage got off to a hot start at the Invitational here in Seattle, and he's looking good through race number 1. Lap 4 of 7, still a ways to go. It's a little bit different, Tanner. This is more like a sprint race. You got these short races, a lot of speed, but you don't have a lot of time to sit back and wait for a move.
No, there's an absolute intensity. Even just watching this, not actually having a steering wheel in your hand, there's an absolute intensity to this race that means you have to take advantage of every mistake the driver in front of you makes. And when they make a mistake and you're not able to seize an opportunity to make a pass, it just feels like you lost something, like you really beat yourself up over that. And so you have to pace yourself in that intensity and try to find those corners that lead onto the long straightaways. Focus on being perfect on those corners to make an actual pass under braking.
And Alan, we've got some heavy hitters near the back of the pack. Talking about Rossi and Bam 7. Some of the bigger names on the circuit have yet to make moves.
You're absolutely right. These guys all struggling for the scraps that Roadrunner and Lage are leaving, at the side of the table here. The pace at the front is so impressive, so fast, but it's leaving massive names back in the mid-pack, down towards the rear of this. You've got to remember, to get to this point, every single driver out there has already beaten thousands of other competitors just in order to be here at this race. So there's no shame in it in a way, but everyone wants to be at the front.
$250,000 this year in 2018 in the ForzaRC. There's some reasons to get out there and race.
The racing is awesome, but with this, when it's this wet, at one touch of the grass, and you lose so much speed under acceleration, you can see a couple guys putting a tire off just on the track out. And that costs you so much speed, maybe 3 miles an hour on the straightaway, but that could be 4 or 5 car lengths by the end. So it's really, it heightens the intensity of just being incredibly disciplined on your track here.
And discipline is something we've seen just time and again from Lage, the guy leading this race, but also from JSR Rossi, one of the cleanest and most sort of cerebral drivers out there. He's here, we're watching this battle right now for 7th position, WR Virus chasing him down. And Rossi is just always able just to bring it into the apex. You can see him now through tower, flip the puddle right the way back out to the curb. And, an extra ½ mile an hour there in rolling speed through the apex would have seen him out on the grass.
Through the Flying Fortress straight down to turn 15 and 16. Haven't seen a lot of moves or mistakes on the Sunset Bend.
Not yet. Sunset always claims a victim. It's just biding its time. The jaws of infinity, clenching and opening, but no one yet going for it.
First of 3 races today. This one on Sebring. Of course, you have the opportunity to go out to watch.forzarc.com and vote on our next car combo. Will it be the F40 or the F50? Which that'll be on Silverstone. Be going across the pond for that. Lap 6 now. Lage well out in front, and for him, this is where he likes to be. You know, I know that sounds a bit obvious, you know, being out in front, but this is where he feels most comfortable. He can get out there and run. He can run a defensive line if he wants, but most of the time, he's just a pedal to the metal kind of guy.
Even when he's by himself, he's got a half a tire in the grass on every single track out of every corner, so he's absolutely pushing it without having the pressure behind him. Meanwhile, you've got Box pressuring Roadrunner, so they're not going to be catching Lage anytime soon because you've got Roadrunner having to defend every major braking point.
You're absolutely right. Box slipping through, in fact, and we were on board there with Asics, who was looking forward at that battle. Box and Roadrunner still fighting, and Asics can smell blood here. He could be on for a double overtake here, straight up to that middle rung of the podium.
Great patience by Box, who just sort of sat back in that third position through the first 6 laps, waited for his time, and Roadrunner maybe sitting in a bit of fatigue battling with Lage. Next thing you know, Box able to overtake.
So difficult to get your rhythm back, you know, when you've been battling with somebody else, when you've been running lines which aren't organic, they're not the ones that you want to be running, but instead they're the lines that are forced on you by somebody else you're fighting with. It's so hard to reset that mindset.
We saw that with Roadrunner when he was behind Lage, and he's incredibly good through this 14, 15, 16 complex that they're coming into now. So he may have something for Box here as we head into that.
Lap 6 of 7. We'll be back around one more time. We have an opportunity on turn 17, Sunset Bend, to see someone to get some speed, maybe an overtaking possibility heading down into turn 1 on this final lap. It's coming here in race number 1.
Pole position sitter, AMS Roadrunner. He led for the first short while in this race and just slipped back, and he's been slipping backwards and backwards now. You can see Lage has run away. He's disappeared. He's such a monster when he gets out there on his own. Disappeared off into the distance. TPR Box sitting in second, worked his way past Roadrunner, and now Season 3 champion AMS Roadrunner is under threat from Asics, from Vitality.
Tanner, have you seen that on the track, especially in these endurance races where different elements, as it gets a little hairy here in turn 7, where some guy might be running clean when the track is dry, but for Roadrunner, once that rain started, he started slipping back.
It's, you know, there are specialists. People, I mean, everybody out here is a specialist, but for some reason, some people are labeled wet track specialists. And they have something for finding the grip in the wet, they're able to balance the car right at the edge of the grip a little bit better, or maybe they're just a little bit cleaner on the exits and don't lose any traction on the grass. But certainly we've seen a couple of those specialists come to the surface here, and making passes in the last lap, such clean passes, is really impressive.
Well, the battle right now is for 3rd place. Lage well out front. Box has got him some space now, but Roadrunner is having to contend with Asics. Of course, Jay Mitch is right there as well, Allie.
Yeah, Mitch still in there, and there he is up the inside, down through the second hairpin. He's going to muscle his way through there. A little bit of tap on the quarter panel has bought him a bit of space. Maybe a gentleman's lift there from Mitch just to let Asics back through on the double left. I don't know, though. I don't know if do you back out, Tanner, if you think, oh, that wasn't fair? Do you have a little bit of a lift, or is it all fair in Love and War?
I'm not sure how strict the judging is. I imagine it is pretty strict, so that may have been a smart move. He could have saved himself a couple penalty spots there.
Yeah, we talked about the sprint racing. If you get a 5-second penalty in a 7-lap race, Tanner, I mean, that's really going to set you back.
Yeah, most of the cars are lined up in the first 5 seconds here, so it's that would put you back in the points. It'd be probably a smart move. If he knew that he tapped him offline and that he was going to get a penalty later, then he did the right thing.
Well, Lage is on the Ullman straight here, going around turn 17, the patient bumpy ride. It looks like he's going to find himself heading back to the finish line, and unofficially he'll be out in front. Box looks like he's going to have a 2nd place. Roadrunner still trying to hold on to 3rd.
Just always looks like surgery to me as Rossi just has a little go at Mitch there, but doesn't quite manage it for 4th position. So Mitch will hold on every single time, though, that Lage is out there on track. Walks away with that kind of a win. It just looks like surgery to me. It just looks so clinical the way he's driving.
Clinical is such a good word for that. I mean, the precision is really staggering. And for such a tricky track, such a high horsepower car, rear-wheel drive front engine sets you up for a little bit of failure because you're fighting wheel spin every exit of every corner, and it just is absolutely spectacular to watch that kind of racing.
Boy, the race changed when that rain came down in lap number 3. Roadrunner was out there running dry, but when it got wet, it was time for Lage to get busy.
You know, like classically with Lage and this kind of Lage Roadrunner battle that we've seen in the past few events, it's Roadrunner who likes a little bit of an oversteery car when it's going to hit the rear out, and Lage prefers a little bit more understeer. So it could be that the rain kind of changed the character of the C7R just a little bit towards his advantage.
You certainly would want to be a bit cleaner in your driving style when it got wet. These tires tend to, when it's in the wet, once they start sliding, they continue sliding. So you might get away with that in the dry with a little bit more overdriving, but in the wet, yeah, you'd have to adopt the Lage driving style.
Well, we're in the adjudication process, but while we have an opportunity, let's take a look at the provisional results. It was Lage all the way out in front, with Box was trying to nip on his heels. Coach Box spent most of the race just trying to get by Roadrunner. He was successful there. Roadrunner in 3rd. Fatality running around for A6, and then Mitch in 5th.
You got to remember that Box is the reason Lage wasn't on pole coming into this race. that
yeah.
Recap with Mellish, Box is the guy who can beat Lage on track. He's the one who's maybe got the he's got the secret sauce somewhere in there. I don't know what it is. We'll talk to him afterwards. We'll find out.
Well, a disappointing name on that list had to be Rossi, who was really fast at the Invitational, especially in the team side, falling back here in race number 1.
Rossi's an interesting character. He's one who, in individual races, he doesn't shine so bright. He hasn't been up there fighting at the very front of the pack, maybe lacks aggression. But we took the pressure off in the Invitational with the team competition. It wasn't just down to him anymore. And he was winning race after race after race. So it could be like a mindset thing with him.
There could be some sort of a threshold. You know, I've been accused of being a much better driver when I'm alone in the lead than when I'm battling it out. And so there may be some sort of stress threshold that you hit, or aggression level that clicks over a little bit. And yeah, there's some mind games, and some of that comes from just experience, I think, and just doing laps.
Well, we got a lot of drivers competing here. Let's take a look at some of the guys we out there. You know the names. You know Lage, you know Box, you know Roadrunner. We talked a little bit about Rossi. Who's a guy out there that might be the dark horse here in this Wednesday showdown?
I mean, we saw Mitch struggling a little bit there towards the end of the race, but I like him. I like what he's doing. I like that he's the new boy at JSR. He's the one who's able to maybe bring a bit of fresh life into the team, which hasn't been at the pointy end of the competition for a little while now at the ForzaRC. I want to see Mitch in there shaking up the order, being the new guy.
You'd rather be the underdog sometimes. You know, it's nice to be the underdog because you do get the benefit of the doubt every so often, and it's nice to be kind of the young blood in there. I haven't been that for a very long time, but there's a couple grays here. I'm not sure you can see those, but yeah, you weren't going to say anything.
Yeah. I
no.
had no idea.
You know, but it comes down to consistency. Something that young blood sometimes can make a spark, but maybe it doesn't last very long. If you can prove some consistency, you're no longer an underdog, and you're just making points.
Is it frustrating out there that, you know, for some of these guys that are trying to break in to the racing, or maybe they're always in that 4 through 6 area? Is there a bit of frustration that it's like, it's Lage again? It's Lage again. Is there a bit of frustration out there on the track?
It's hard to beat Lage, and he is. I think it always comes down to this sort of sports psychology kind of thing, where it's like, you have to tell yourself, I don't need to beat the other guy. I don't need to be faster than my teammate or faster than the person who's, you know, at the top of the game or whatever. You have to tell yourself, I have to be better than myself today. You know, next week I have to do better than me, and I have to be my benchmark and not somebody else. But it's so difficult to do that when you have someone like Lage out there who's so able just to rack up victories, just gets out in the lead, pushes, and takes that win.
It's, yeah, you can't help but analyze a lot. And in racing, I mean, it's a very heady thing. It seems physical, but it's very heady, and there's a lot of analyzing that goes on. And you wonder what somebody else is doing that you're not. But it is critical to not let that affect you. You know, you have to drive every turn on your own and focus on your strengths. If you do have them, you got to focus on them, period.
Well, we're in the adjudication process. If you guys don't know what that is, we have some fabulous folks back there that are got the monocle out. They're looking at every turn to make sure that it's a gentlemanly race, that it's a fair race. And this is all part of the 2018 season here. And you know, the interesting thing is this is just, you know, the beginning of Series 1. We had the Invitational, but this is the true kickoff to the season. It's going to be a long one, but it's going to be a rewarding one as well.
Yeah, It's a long old season. This is the first moment when the drivers get to go out on track next to each other.
You can see all those races.
Yeah, every 2 weeks we've got a rivals event. We've got ghost races on the Saturday. That's just happened. Sunday, we've got some more heats where the drivers go out, and we saw Melish talking about those. Today, we're here with the Wednesday Showdown, of course, just the first one there. And then after this, for the drivers who maybe didn't do so great or missed out on the races, we do have a booster rivals event as well. So that'll be starting on Thursday. You guys can get right onto Forza Motorsport 7 and, set your fastest lap time there in the hopes of clawing back a few points that you might have missed out on.
You can see the dates there. Does this look like your schedule, Tanner?
Thankfully, no. That looks like a baseball schedule. Those guys are like 160 games a year or something. I mean, that is incredible that there's just so much racing to enjoy, and it's that's one of the great things about this format is you can have a massive schedule like that and get it done and have tons of great racing.
Of course,
250,000. Not to interrupt you, but 250,000 on the line here. This is. Let's be honest, for some, guys out there that are racing for real, behind the wheel, they would be jealous of a $250,000 prize pool. Yes.
And you've got to, remember this $250,000 exactly on the line. It's a huge amount of money, and that's what everyone is out here fighting for. They're, right now they're going for world rankings. They're trying to climb up the ranking order. There'll be a ranking of thousands of Forza drivers out there, which will be available at ForzaRC.com. But
that's going to be a big day.
That's going to be awesome, right? That's going to be so cool. And, ultimately, the people who get to the top of that ranking, who climb their way up that board by out racing, out hot lapping, just out strategizing all the other drivers, will be in with a chance of winning that massive, massive money.
Let's take a look at the global leaderboards that have been happening throughout. Yeah, you can see them right there. There's Lage, Box, Roadrunner. You see the scoring is a little bit different. If you watch this for the first couple seasons, why don't you tell us a little bit about how the scoring's changed here in Series 1, Allie?
Yeah, so we're awarding 20 points for the winner of the race, 15 for second. You can see that that's going to run down all the way to 11th place, so that everybody out there in these 12-person races gets a different score. That's something which everyone's earning points. Even the battle between 11th and 12th is valuable. I mean, Tanner, when you're out there racing, you'll see points often ending in the top 10. There'll be a huge amount of drivers who won't be earning championship points. Does that change your mentality when you're fighting against each other, in real life?
Well, for sure. Sometimes if you don't have a chance to score points, sometimes you're just beating on the car. If you don't need the practice and you have another race the next weekend or the next day, or if you get damaged, really, if there's something that happens to the car, you may be better off pulling off. And that doesn't happen when you're fighting for points right to the last position. And that's great for racing all the way back through the field because everybody's going for it right to the line.
Well, we had our eyes on the race, and they're in the adjudication process. Was there anything we saw? I saw at one point that Vitality got a little squirrely on the inside. I think that was in turn 2, heading into that 3, 4, 5 complex there. But I think he backed off. Anything else you saw out there?
Yeah, exactly that. That little sort of Mitch with a few moves there that were a little bit aggressive, and yeah, exactly. Vitality, Asics fighting back as well. It was give and take. It wasn't massive hits. It wasn't people ending up in the grass or the tire wall. So I felt like it wasn't so bad. It wasn't going to get much adjudication, but we'll find out. Of course, the guys are right now going through all that data and sifting through the race and seeing if there was anything just a little bit too sort of. Too aggressive, let's say, out there.
Well, the biggest part of what we do is it all starts off with those rival boards. It all starts out with the rival laps. We got some fast guys out there that are putting it down. Let's take a look at the week's fastest driver that we have here for the opening week here for Series 1. And, when you get out there and you have the opportunity to just get out there and set the fastest lap, that's where these guys really excel. The cream of the crop always rises to the top when it comes to these rivals.
There's a sport called time attack. It's one of those interesting sports born in the hills of Japan. And no, this sport it's kind of a tuner challenge, and essentially a car just has to lap it needs to last just one lap. You'll test and tune the whole day and essentially just put everything on the line. Jump all the curbs you can, cut as much as you possibly can off of every corner in order to get one lap. And there's a totally different discipline to get it done that way. A lot of the guys that are able to drive 92%, 91% and be very disciplined the whole race may not be good at turning it up to 111 for just one lap and putting out a crank out time that maybe they couldn't do twice in a row. But, you know, for that type of format, it's beneficial to have that skill.
You know, you're talking about that. I'm thinking about the beginning of the Fate and the Furious. I was watching it on the airplane here. Like Vin Diesel's like tearing the bits off the car. He's like, it's only got to do one lap.
That's 211%.
That's 211%.
Yeah.
There it is.
Well, I have to remind the folks that are out there watching right here. I know there's someone probably in the chat right now are saying, get to the racing, dude. Well, we're in the adjudication process, and it's so important because that's how we're going to set the grid for the next race. So it's very important that if there's penalties, if there's changing in the provisional results, that's key because that's how we're going to line them up for race number 2.
Yeah, and it means that the drivers who perform best, they're not stuck down the grid. They're able to progress their way forward, race on race, getting better results. But as you say, Scott, we can't very well give an advantage to somebody who has maybe gotten their position, their ending position in race 1 through unfair means. We have to make sure that everyone is there on the virtue of their skill behind the wheel.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break right now. That's enough of us just up here. I don't even know what we're doing at this point. But when we come back, we're going to have some amazing race number 2. We're going to step away for a moment. We're going to have those results of race number 1. Tons of racing today, so make sure you keep it locked right here. Don't go anywhere. We are back here in Seattle. You know, just us hanging out with a Corvette. No big deal.
Yeah, this is what we do. Just every day, just chilling out by a C7. Pretty good car, right?
It is a good car. We're going to take a look at that a little later.
Yeah, he's going to be walking us through that. We've a little bit cleaner than the car we had at the Invitational that had to call all that bruising down at Sebring.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of dirt out there on a big racetrack. You know, one that's run for 12 hours straight. Especially, we saw that Porsche just at the Invitation, like you say, you know, covered in muck. This like thick layer of it. That was awesome. But yeah, a much shinier car this time round. And that's a look too. That also works.
Well, we have the final results. Let's take a look at it. Race number 1, and let's see if Lage is held on to the top here. And he will. Box will be in second, Roadrunner third. And really no change in there. You see Rossi moving up to 5th. So he climbed 8 spots in that first race.
Yeah, Rossi making good there on a difficult qualifying. Actually, it slipped past me slightly in the first grid order that Rossi had done so poorly in the semi-finals to qualify for this race. But he's making good on that now. He's set himself up so in race 2 maybe he can make a real impact.
Well, I mean, it comes down to consistency. So as long as you can place points and gather points along the way and not have any really negative showings, then you've got a chance at the championship there.
Well, we had some voting going on. It's time for race number 2. Let's see which way the community is leaning toward. Will it be the Ferrari F40 or the Ferrari F50? That's the big question right now. We were all kind of leaning toward the F50. But it's, no, actually, you guys were saying F40. I was down here saying F50. It will be the F40, so congratulations to you guys.
Well, I feel like that's a win for us.
I'm taking that. That's yeah, tick.
I mean, these are such iconic cars. There's just something so pure and gnarly about these things, that not just in the reputation they have, but the sound that they actually make and the way they actually feel, and just this ridiculous amount of carbon fiber when you sit in these things. They're beautiful on the track, so I'm looking forward to this.
Is there really a wrong car when it comes to this poll? Take a look at poll number 3. It's going to be depending on which track do you want for race number 3. Is it going to be the Nurburgring, the GP circuit, or is it going to be Road America? That's the alternate version with a little kink.
That's right. Yeah, 2 very, very good tracks. Of course, we're going to be taking the WTCC Honda there. So you've got to keep in mind that's going to be a front-wheel drive car, which is almost a first, I think, for the ForzaRC. I love front-wheel drive racing. It definitely brings a lot of elbow movement out there and lots of really tough moves. So very interesting vote that we've got on there.
So much momentum with those cars. They're reasonably low horsepower, but very lightweight. And when they're set up from the factory teams, like this one will be set up, it's a very, very stiff rear spring, so much so that it almost oversteers more than a rear-wheel drive car. And so there's a lot of movement. It's very dynamic, but incredibly important to have good momentum.
Well, for more on the cars and the tracks, let's bring back in Elliott Lyons.
Thanks, guys. Hey, look. We just went from a track that requires a lot of finesse, weather. Now we've gone to a choice that's about cars. When we talk about Silverstone, okay, this is a fast-flowing track. This is where the guys can really get aggressive. It's got 18 turns. It's about the same length. They're going to really be able to put the power to the ground, not going to worry about rain or anything else. That's going to be awesome. We saw from the choice 2 cars, F40, F50, older versus newer. I don't think you can really go wrong with either one. The fact that we're racing a car that they sold to the public that could take on the streets, that's pretty interesting. So we're going to see how they can go around Silverstone on a dry track that they can be really, really aggressive on.
Let's be honest, they did sell it to the public, but you're not going to go down to your local grocery store and think, oh yeah, there's an F40.
I used to have like a Brugo one when I was a kid, like the metal ones that you could open the front and the back. I love this car. I think it's just such classic design. It's a beauty.
Let's take a look at the grid here for race number 2, second of the day. Of course, Lage coming up with that big victory. He's going to be in the pole. Box has moved himself from 3 to number 2. Roadrunner falls back a spot here. And for Rossi, that was key because now he's in the top 5 on the pole.
Yeah, Rossi looking to move forward here. He's been sneaking his way up in race 1, and we could see him as a real ringer by the end of this competition. Lage is always a danger in the lead, but you've got to keep in mind, like I was saying before, he likes an understeery car, so a car with all the weight at the front. And this Ferrari, it's mid-engined, rear-wheel drive. It might not suit his driving style.
And the track itself also lends itself to a lot of trail braking into corners, which with a mid-engine or rear-engine car can bite you because a lot of that mass behind you wants to continue straight, and you get into some oversteer coming into the corners.
And here we go, Silverstone. We're in the United Kingdom. It's going to be 3.66 miles, 5.67 kilometers, 18 turns. It's a flat track, but it's got a lot of speed corners. 8 laps here in race number 2.
Still board here with the rear of the pack as there gets to be a little bit of a movement there. Commando losing out in a big way. So JSR Commando, not someone who's made a huge impact in race number 1. It looks like in race number 2, his odds will be equally slim. 3rd place, a little bit of a gap there up towards the 2 leaders.
780 horsepower on this F40. You can see Box already making some moves. He's caught the lead here.
There he is, Rossi. Absolute monster. He's just being unleashed here at Silverstone. And that F40 already up to 3rd position. I'm absolutely wrong. Excuse me, we're on board with Roadrunner. Yeah. I wanted it to be Rossi. I wanted it to be Rossi so badly, but it's Roadrunner in 3rd.
Yeah, Rossi riding along in 5th. It's Lage out in front. Box in 2. You can see Lage at G2 car. We're going to be seeing a lot of blue in this Series 1.
We are Lage here, just setting the pace, of course. Just he's got the advantage of pole position, the ability to just hang out there from the front. The first time through Maggots and Beckett's here for all the drivers as they shift down the gears to that progression of corners that goes from very fast to very slow. Lage managing just to pull out there a little bit of a gap on TPR Box, who's in 2nd place.
Tanner, what's your thoughts on this track, Silverstone?
Well, it's incredible. That Maggots and Beckett's is so complicated to do. Such complicated cornering while braking there is really probably one of the more difficult pieces of race ribbon made on the planet. But I'm not sure if these are on the street tires that you might find on the road cars. But I mean, incredible action going on the track. But the street tires would make it so much more difficult, much more sliding. You can see that coming up. Oh my goodness! I mean, it really is a car control machine with actual street tires rather than racing slicks.
Those guys going 3 wide there into turn 1. Mitch and Roadrunner just sneaking their way past Rossi, who I think is going to feel a little bit bullied there. He was being very polite, didn't want to overtake Roadrunner, who was hanging out that car, just, like Formula drifting that thing through the last corner. But, he left in space, moved back onto the track, was very slow about it. And maybe that's the kind of lack of aggression that we were talking about from Rossi there, where I think he might have been better to have just made the move and let the marshals sort it out later.
Still here in the first lap. Lap 1 of 8. Here on Silverstone, race number 2. Scott Cole, Ali Tack, of course, Tanner Foust join us throughout the day. Here in Seattle, it's the Wednesday Showdown. And we got a long season. This is just the first group of races. Lays out in front as we move into lap number 2. Box in second. Fatality has been pretty consistent. We did talk a lot about him in that first race, but he's able to work his way up into that number 3 spot.
Yeah, he's done a good job. This is Asics from Team Vitality, and he's been just working his way around that front pack, a little bit like Box, but kind of without the opportunities. So Box has managed to sneak his way up there, and he's now keeping Lage honest in second, whereas Asics, who we're on board with right now, maybe hasn't had those chances just yet. He's waiting to pounce on them and just lingering in that second pack. Big old gap, though, up the road. I mean, it's going to be all about just keeping his lines tidy right now and making sure he's applying that pace onto the track, because it's easy to get lost when there's so much track ahead of you.
It really is. All you can do on these straightaways is focus on that braking mark. It's a lot like driving on the actual track. You can long straightaways, your mind can start to wander. To be honest, did I do the laundry? Did I turn off the coffee maker? I don't know. Sometimes these straightaways, even with 780 horsepower, you start thinking about other things. So if you focus on that brake marker and put your whole world into that brake marker in the next corner, then you can stay focused on the race.
There's no more feeling. There's no feeling that's more sort of just kicking yourself. It just feels more stupid than wandering off onto the grass midway down the straight and just realizing, oh, I can't catch this. This car is actually going to spin. So yeah, the guys trying to keep their head in the game during this race.
Is that from experience?
100%.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Bitter experience.
I'm trying to think of my history of Asics. Was he was not with Vitality a year ago, or was he?
He was not. So Asics leaving BAM.
That's right. That's what I thought.
Team leader over there at BAM and moving over to be the racing leader at Vitality. Good to see him out here at the very pinnacle of the ForzaRC amongst the 12 fastest drivers in EMEA.
Right along with Rossi now. He's in 6th place. Roadrunner's falling all the way back to 7th. But to see Rossi once again getting well wide on this track.
Roadrunner's all out of sorts, I've got to say. I'm used to seeing Roadrunner able, especially in a car like the F40 that kicks the rear out, that does all this kind of silly business around the corners. He's the one who's able to control that, and he's just slipping backwards here. He's woken up on the wrong side of the bed. This is an off day for him. I don't know what it is, but Roadrunner not able to capitalize on what should be a strength.
It is a Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday.
Midweek, out of sorts. But they better get this in their mindset that this is how they're going to make their money, is on Wednesdays.
He's going to have to find something. He's going to have to find a routine. He's going to have to change the mindset. I don't know what it is. Or, maybe he's got like a cast on his thumb. Maybe he broke his thumb earlier today. I don't know what it is, but he's got to get over it.
I usually just change my socks. If you start there, change the socks. It's like in golf. You just change the golf ball if it's going wrong. And, maybe that's going to work for him.
Halfway through the race here, lap 4 of 8 here on Silverstone. This is race number 2. Still have a 3rd race to come. It's going to be interesting to see. And it'll be the front-wheel drive Honda. How much of change is that to go from the F40 to a Civic?
That is, that's...
Without besmirching. I'm not trying to besmirch the Honda. This is just 2 different classes.
Hey, we can have fisticuffs right here, Scott. I love that Honda. We can go. The F40 is a classic. It's a racing car that's just so stereotypical almost. You can look at the silhouette of it and go, wow, that's the car. The Honda maybe isn't so much that, but it has a character of its own. It's snappy. It's we'll see it later on. Right now, though, Rossi trying to get past Virus here. He's going to make that work. That's the old start corner. That's the old first corner here at the previous layout at Silverstone, and not an easy place to make an overtake.
No, it isn't. And, you know, these cars are not forgiving. I mean, let's face it, 1987 was not very forgiving. And there's no, I'm just kidding. I
don't think Allie was born. Were you born in 87?
Barely.
Barely born.
That was the year of my birth.
Gotcha.
I mean, it was pretty bold to put 780 horsepower on a chassis like this, which to today's standards would seem unsorted. It's hard to say that about a Ferrari, but this thing literally will just bite you. And the Civic will seem so much more sorted. It'll be on racing slicks. Yes, it's front-wheel drive, but it also will be much more responsive to steering than these cars, just because it's newer.
But in your point, Allie, these are the cars right here that these guys are used to racing time and time again. The ones that are high-powered, rear-wheel drive. Like, let's be honest. Let's go back to this Honda Ferrari. You're the biggest Ferrari fanboy on the history of the planet.
I am. But, you know, I was always, yeah, I don't know. The 458 like is just like such a thing of beauty. I mean, I know it's not featuring in this week, but maybe we can have a small segment now where we all talk about the 458 and how great it is.
Yeah.
I see that in the run of show here. We have to boost your morale for 30 seconds.
That's right. It's an amazing car. The thing about it is, as you say, Scott, and you're so right in saying it, this is the kind of car that when you load up Forza, when you're like, what shall I do? What shall I race? You don't choose a Honda Civic around the Nurburgring.
Very true.
You choose a Ferrari F40 at Silverstone just every single time.
Rossi later on in 5th place. Roedner back in 7th. There's 7. Of course, across that BAM crew, and he's fallen back now to 11th as Chemical was able to move up 1 spot. There's really, I mean, you kind of talked about it early on, Tanner. It's on this racetrack, is anybody going to make a mistake? They're in 10 through 13. That's really the only opportunity you have to really maybe gain a spot.
It's true, but with the speeds on this track, and especially with this car, the smallest mistake can have huge penalties. So you see a lot of people, I mean, it's hard to say that it looks like they're, you know, being cautious and taking it a little bit easy as they're sliding through these corners at over 100 miles an hour. But everybody is being very, very tidy because I'm sure they've learned the hard way. With this car, you over-rotate on the entry to a corner, and you're deep into the weeds.
They make it look so easy, right?
They sure do.
And the car looks like it's well behaved. It looks like it's staying in one place. They are feathering the throttle. They're blipping it on gear changes. They're making sure that rear stays under control all the time. I mean, if you put me in one of these cars, it's just going to do donuts. This is a very, very difficult challenge just to keep it on the road. JSR Mitchie, you can see his telemetry there on the bottom right of the screen, and you know, just watch that throttle as we go down through the gears, bouncing it there, a little bit of a blip as we come into the corner, just to settle that rear and allow the car to sort of really skate through the apex.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning, and we haven't mentioned it today, there's no assist on. You know, I know if you're watching at home, you're like, this is pretty easy. You know, get out there, and every turn you take, you take that right trigger, and you just slam it down, right, full power. But these guys have 0 assist on. If they did that, they'd be well off in the grass.
Yeah, I mean, unlike in real life, Tanner, they don't have a racing line painted on the track, which changes color to show them how fast they're going.
I'd just be lost without that thing.
It's like, is it a left or a right?
I mean, and they don't run with ABS, correct? So there's no anti-lock brakes.
Nothing.
And
Nothing.
so even just the discipline under braking, especially a track like this where the car's loaded up to one side under braking, it's so easy to lock the inside tire. And you're not seeing any smoke tufting off of these front tires into these corners, especially turn 1, being one that it's prone to cause that condition.
Now, in this vehicle, you definitely would want some assist on. When we get to the front-wheel drive next race, that's one where it's sort of nice having the assist off.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, especially on Forza, one of the things you really want to do in front-wheel drive is turn the traction control off. This allows the car to pull itself out of an apex and out of a corner. Is that a similar thing in real life? Do you want to have a bit more to play there?
The last front-wheel drive road racing series I did was an Audi TT, and you had 3 settings for differential settings and for traction control settings on the steering wheel. And so you could feel how if you tighten the preload on the differential, it would pull the front through the exit of the corner better. If it was wet, you would, and you're trying to save tires, you turn the traction control up a little bit. But it all makes such a difference. And with the Honda and the amount of horsepower that we'll have, you can overheat that inside front tire out of the corners and give yourself some understeer as you're trying to track out.
Next time we get around to Lage, we got some talented crew here working the ins and outs. Next time we get out front to Lage, Ali, I would love for you to just take me through what he's doing here on Silverstone just to dominate this circuit.
Yeah, it's coming in through Luffield here, and it's going to be the long right-hander of Brooklands afterwards. It's all about how much you take here on the exit. Lage is going to take it all, so not giving himself any kind of movement there into the right-hander of Brooklands. It's a difficult thing. I mean, we were looking at the telemetry earlier of one of the drivers, and I think that's so important here with the F40, understanding how you have to drive it. It's because the rear differential will lock up those tires on a downshift just like anything. Here we go, you can see it. And actually, this is a great moment to have a look as we go in through Maggots and Beckett's. There'll be a slight deceleration here into the left, into the right, then to the left again. Just watch that throttle as he blips it, and looks for that point where the rear tires are going to give him grip, but they're not. He's still going to be challenging the rear. It's not going to slide out, but it's still going to be using 100% of those tires' grip that it's offering him.
They really do make it look too easy. I'm sorry, they just do. I mean, these cars, even with how smooth they're driving them, they still look dynamic and still see them moving around, but the amount of skill really is spectacular.
So I continue to bring it up, you know, and it is. It looks easy. It looks like you just load it up and let's jump into a lobby and let's get some race on. But these guys are the best of the best in Forza.
It's one of the great things about Forza Motorsport, right? You know, it looks easy for them, and actually you can kind of make it quite easy for yourself as well. Play the game how you want to play it, you know. Turn the assists on if you're learning what you're doing. Then, you know, turn them all on and give yourself a go, and you can drive the track just like this. If you want to pull those seconds off, fight for those tenths, those hundredths of a second even on the leaderboard, you're going to need to turn those assists off, and you're going to need to allow the car to talk to you a little bit more without being limited by anti-lock brakes or traction control systems.
Final lap here, 8 of 8 here on Silverstone. Guys, are you a bit surprised we haven't seen more movement up and down the leaderboard?
It's been a quiet race, right? It's been a little bit quiet. All of them out there, maybe they're kind of settling themselves, biding their time for what will be a deluge of action next time out in the Civics. I mean, keep in mind, not only are we going to be going into a race with a front-wheel drive car, something completely different, but also this will be the first time that we feature a reverse grid on the ForzaRC.
I did an evil laugh there. Every time I hear reverse grid, I'm like, Can
we get an arched fingers cam?
Yeah. Been a quiet race, though, thus far, Tanner.
It has been. You can see little action coming up here on the last lap as we see a couple challenges. But with such a high-speed track, things seem to spread out really more than they are on the clock. The cars are actually just within a few hundredths of a second right here. But you know, naturally accordions out a little bit with as high speed as these corners are. Still a couple opportunities though.
Final lap, race number 2. This is the Wednesday Showdown. We got a ton of racing coming your way. It's gonna be a full day of racing.
It is just the last corners here for this Rossi challenging his teammate Mitch. They're not going to want to take each other out here. 4-5 is a strong finish for JSR. Rossi trying the undercut here. It's a beautiful move, actually. He's got the nose in there. It's going to be a run to the line between these two. Where's Rossi gone? We missed him, but that's Lage taking the win.
Lage takes it, box. Tried to make a move through club there late, but nothing going as Roadrunner able to balance himself a little bit. He was is down as far as 8th, but able to battle back to 6th. But maybe another disappointing. He had a nice 2 laps when we started on Sebring, but since then, since the rain came down, he's been sort of sliding back, even going to Silverstone.
He's locked, right? I mean, sorry, this is Roadrunner.
Yeah, Roadrunner.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So Roadrunner.
I don't talk about Lage all the time. All right.
I mean,
it's 80%.
I had Lage in my head for some reason. I was just like daydreaming about him. I don't know. But yeah, Roadrunner's, he's having trouble. Right?
Another personal problem.
I bring them to work with me. Let's talk it out. Well, I mean, what do you do, Tanner? Like, if a race weekend isn't going your way, if, you know, maybe things are going wrong in testing, the car won't tune properly for a track, how do you reset your mind in order to be able to bring your best in a race?
Besides changing socks.
Yes.
That's usually the first step. Honestly, for me, it's about visualizing it. And so I watch videos. I literally watch in-car videos of when it was done right, when I've done it right, and reset. Reset really how to handle the track, how to handle the corner, how to handle the car. Maybe I'll change some settings and try to get a better feeling in a certain corner that's giving me trouble. But even just watching videos in-car can completely reset you for the weekend. So good luck, Roadrunner.
Needs a battle back. Let's take a look at some of the highlights, some of the replay of race number 2. As it's been going well for Lage. Lage has been well out in front. Anytime you give him that clean air, let's be honest, he's pretty unbeatable.
Yeah, he just locks in, doesn't he? I mean, it's so difficult to beat him. You have to break his rhythm early. That didn't happen this time, so we saw Lage just dominate lap after lap after lap. You need to throw a risky move on him into turn 1 or in that first sector of the first lap. Otherwise, you've got trouble for the rest of the race. Nice climbing here from Rossi, though. He did a good job capitalizing a little bit more on what was a tough qualifying for this event. He made up a little bit in race 1, made up a little bit in race 2, and did a good job.
We talked about it being sort of a straightforward race. There's some challenges, you know, you're more waiting for guys to make mistakes, right? You're trying to run a good line, trying to keep that speed up in case someone maybe gets more than a tire or 2 up on the curb that you were able to make a move by, but really was nothing there. No doors were open for any of our drivers.
Yeah, I mean, if race 1 was about the car, as Elliott said, race 2 was about minimizing mistakes. And that's what we saw out there. We saw a few people making a few slip-ups and losing positions, but on the whole, you can trust these drivers to take something if you're going to give it to them.
So race number 2, provisionally in the books, as we head to another, I don't want to call it excruciating adjudication process, but I want to still put out there that it's so very important that we make sure, especially with the reverse grid coming up, that we're going to have it set up. Let's take a look at some of those provisional results of race number 2. As you saw Lage once again, you put him out in front, he's got an opportunity, but I don't think we can underestimate what boxes come with. You know, in the qualifiers, he was able to take a race in the same lobby from Lage. He's right there sitting in number 2. If this can hold up, he's at least given himself an opportunity in race 3.
I love it. I love it. I want to see Box winning and up there. You know, he's one of these drivers who every single time we do ForzaRCs, gets into an accident or something doesn't go his way, the shoulders drop. He doesn't bring the effort and the attitude that I think he deserves to bring to these events. So I'm so glad to see him succeeding. He's going to stay up there, stay positive, and keep pushing forward throughout the rest of the event.
Well, I have on my notes here that this guy, Tanner Foust, knows a lot about cars. Let's see. Let's go over to Tanner, who's standing by with our Corvette.
I feel like you're overselling it a little bit. Is it safe to say that? Well, we do have a car in the flesh here. This is a C7. It's an LT8, which is essentially, you could call the convertible version of the base model of that C7R that we saw in the last race. Now, there's obviously a lot of nice goodies in here, carbon fiber and leather, and Chevy has done so much to improve the interior of this. And if you're buying this car, maybe you had a poster of a Corvette growing up. Maybe your dad or your grandfather had a Corvette, or maybe you're just in stage 4 of your midlife crisis and you just need a yellow convertible. Doesn't matter. It's a beautiful machine, but let's look at the heart of this machine, which is under the hood. 455 horsepower under a carbon fiber hood. And the thing that impresses me the most is not one of the greatest things to come out of the American automotive industry, which is the LS engine, is how much Chevy has done to work on the balance of this car. So many racing lessons learned in building this car. It's not the soft marshmallow of a sports-ish muscle car that maybe it was in the 60s. Now the engine is so far back that the entire engine is behind the center of the front wheels. We've got, like I said, carbon fiber hood, aluminum everywhere, everything to balance the weight of the C7. And I understand the C8 will actually have the engine mid-mounted behind the seats. Such a commitment to racing that Chevy is showing. And they started it years ago. It's continuing on with the beloved Stingray.
I want to welcome you back into the Wednesday Showdown. Good job taking us through. I had a 03 convertible at an LS1. I thought I was hot stuff. I show up to my first Corvette meet, and I was like, oh, the Z06. Yeah, mine's a piece of crap.
You know, there's still a lot in your 2003 there. It's no, the Z06 was a bit of a game changer. I was always amazed at the commitment for weight savings in those cars. Now it's about balance, and the Chevy's program in racing. Okay, I race for Volkswagen, so you know I don't know all the ins and outs of their racing, but you know you can't help but notice from afar, and the commitment to performance and the dominance that they've actually achieved in their class is really incredible. And the fact that it's going mid-mounted engine in the future just shows. I mean that's not an easy feat for the engineers.
I think for the traditionalist, Allie, they don't want to see it mid-engine. But from a racing perspective, that's just going to make them faster.
I mean, yeah, what is it about these mid-mounted engines, right? I mean, Ferrari, the 488 over the GTLM there. You got the Ford, of course. Porsche moving to a mid-mount rather than the traditional rear on the 911. And now the C8, I guess, when that comes along. What's the advantage of mid-mounting rather than having it anywhere else?
It's not just because I drive for Volkswagen that, you know, Ferdinand Porsche, his first car was mid-mounted. So, I mean, I guess he had it right. No, there's been a lot of manufacturers that have found that. And I think there's probably a lot of reasons, and a lot of people a lot smarter and more knowledgeable about engineering than I am understand those, but it seems the more you move the weight to the center of rotation of the car, the more manageable everything is. The softer you can make the suspension, the less you have to, more control you have over roll centers versus center of gravity, and so there's just a lot of dynamic advantages. As tires get better and better, the chassis needs to get better and better, and so they're pushing the limits more, and some types of tracks and types of tires need certain type of balance in the car, and mid-mount seems to be the way to go.
I mean, you're so right, but Scott, I mean, I don't like it either. I want, next it'll be turbochargers, right, in a Chevy. You want to have,
no, we can't hit that point. The good news is we do have the official results for race number 2 of 3, and let's see, once again, is it Lage up on top? Nothing there. So 2 clean races. This one was cleaner even than the first. But we mentioned it. Box right there in second. He's in striking distance moving in to race number 3. Maybe exactly where he wants to be.
Maybe. I mean, remember, race number 3 isn't going to be starting on the previous race order. It's going to be the opposite of that. We're going to have a reverse grid here, an inverted grid. So Box won't be starting quite at the rear, but he'll almost be at the rear. And it'll be some of the slower drivers up ahead. I mean, a reverse grid race, that's a very different way of starting. What do you reckon, Tanner? What's the mindset?
I mean, you have to stay clean. If you're starting in the back and you've got all of this traffic to work through, especially with a momentum car, the racecraft becomes so incredibly difficult, okay? Because it's not just about an over-under and then powering them out on the straightaway. It's literally setting up a pass 3 or 4 turns in advance, knowing where you can carry momentum, and then getting it done on that long straightaway, and it'll take forever to make each pass.
Well, we know the car. What we don't know is the track. So let's take a look at the poll results for race number 3. Will it be Nurburgring or will it be Road America? And we will be heading to the Nurburgring. It is the GP circuit. Maybe a little bit of womp, 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 but this is a great race.
It hasn't got any teeth compared to the Nordschleife, does it? We haven't been there yet. We still haven't been to the Nordschleife.
I want a long Sunday, Wednesday drive now.
Yeah, we got to call Evan out, you know. Come on, Nordschleife. That's it.
Well, for more on the car and the track, let's go over to Elliott Lyons.
Guys, so we're in our 3rd race, and now we're down to the choice of the tracks. Now, you saw they picked the Nurburgring GP. Now, we're not going out and doing the whole big, huge, long race track, okay? But we're going to deal with some elevations, some turns. If they get off the track, there's lots of gravel on this track. But back to the cars. We're in the WTCC Honda Civic. It's a momentum car, as Tanner said. There's front-wheel drive, turbos. What else more could you want? Right, so there's a lot of finesse, a lot of things going on in this car to try to get from the back of the pack to the front, especially for Lage.
All right, Elliott, thanks so much. So this is a crucial race number 3. You mentioned it. The things that have changed is going to be the reverse grid. Let's take a look at that reverse grid right now for this crucial race number 3 here on the Wednesday Showdown. So Commando is going to be out in front. Chemical will be second. Europa will be third. But really the guys we want to watch out for is number 11 and number 12. Can they make a charge? this is going to be key. I know Lage just got himself 40 points, but can he get caught up in some carnage in the back and maybe Box get a top 3 finish? We might have a different leader when all is said and done.
If you put egos behind people they think they ought to be ahead of, you're going to see sloppy overtaking moves. You're going to see a lack of patience. That's going to be the massive challenge here going into this race. Commando as well. Let's keep in mind that's probably one of the, if I had to name my top 3 drivers who could lap an empty track, Commando will be right up there, and he's starting on pole.
Well, we're ready to go. Tanner, I'll ask you here in a minute what's it like, when you're running fast and some of these guys are going to be much slower than you. How do you negotiate that traffic?
Well, I mean, I just don't know how much door-to-door Lage has had with Commando. Okay, all these guys have been racing together for a while, but have they been door-to-door as much as, say, Roadrunner and Lage? So there's a lot of familiarity that goes on with people in your own series, how they're going to react, if they're going to stick a nose in, if you leave the door open just a little bit. So that's going to be a big question for him here.
Absolutely right. They're all learning each other all the time, these drivers in this series. That's, very, very relevant for Commando, who's a little bit newer to the ForzaRC than some of the other drivers. Also for JSR Mitch, who we've talked about earlier on. But these guys, they're not going to hang around at all. This battle of the 7th already lighting up out of the first sector.
It's going to be 7 laps here on Nurburgring. It's going to be 3.2 miles, 16 turns. This is the final race of the day for Europe. We got North America coming up later on, so a lot more racing, but this is a crucial race number 3. We talked about the reverse grid. Can we have some of these guys in the middle of the pack, back of the pack, make some moves and flip this leaderboard on its head?
Look at these guys side by side through 3/4 of the track without touching so much as a fender. Being in rallycross, I'm just not used to this. It's incredible how clean these guys are. Really, it's really admirable, frankly.
And it's a lot different. We talked about this before we came on air. Is when you're working a game like this, it's much more visual. Everything is the visual cue. You don't have those other senses working for you, Tanner.
It's true. There's you don't have the you can't use as much of your visceral feeling of is this braking too early or too late, but that's almost better. I work constantly on the track towards being much more methodical about where I choose braking points and being more mechanical about things rather than always just using the visceral feel. Sometimes that stuff can be jaded by the emotion of the moment, or that's when people can get red misted as they're using their feel for what seems right rather than using the same braking cues over and over again. So being methodical like you have to be in a game like this can actually be a beneficial mindset in real life.
And Allie, we didn't see a lot of movement in race number 2 on Silverstone, but I expect with this reverse grid, we're going to see some overtaking.
Yeah, we saw Chemical there trying it on with BAM 7 into turn 1, and we've got 3 wide here back towards 9th position. This is Mitch, Box, and then Asics just behind. It's this very, very close style of racing that you're really going to see in a touring car like this one. Front engine, that big turbo that you're just waiting to kick in when it gets to about 5,000 revs.
Looking at the track here, Tanner, do you see some possible mistake corners or some overtaking possibilities?
It seems in real life like a big wide track, and you look at it and it looks actually fairly narrow here, and I think this is probably more accurate. There's tons of places to make mistakes. There's all kinds of turns that lure you in too deep. There's all kinds of decreasing radius corners. And while it's not the full north loop, there's still plenty of treachery out here.
Certainly is. Still held back in 11th position is Box, 2nd place in both of the previous races with Lage behind him. So the 2 winning drivers right now at the very rear of this pack, and it's Roadrunner who's managed to make the most progress, I think, moving up through this field.
Yeah, already in 7th, Box still holding at 11th. Lage is behind him. It's not too often that we spend a lot of time looking at the back of the pack, but that's really where the results are going to come down to it. I mean, I am interested in who wins this race, but when you're looking at the overall breadth of these 3 races here on the Wednesday Showdown, it's all about those 2 guys, Box and Lage. But you mentioned, can Roadrunner maybe power his way up to the top and get a nice finish here late, maybe propel him into the conversation?
Oh, I've got to just get the we've got to get on board with Lage. I'm looking at him. He looks like he's 1 lap down. I don't know if that's true. If that is the case, he's been through the pits. So race winner from race 1 and
looks
race
like he's
2,
+2 now.
potentially dropping out of this race.
He's got 40 points, and almost at this point, we have no idea what happened all the way back in the back of the pack. But he's 2 laps down. He's still on the first lap.
Lage is out of it. There's no way of coming back from that. Even if he's still racing, he is gone.
You know, when you look at these 3 races that they've done on this Wednesday, you have to see, okay, this is a reverse start. This is survival. Get as many points as you can in the first 2 and then survive this one and move up as much as you can. But, you know, you have to take what you get. But being out on the first lap for Lage, I'm sure that wasn't part of the plan.
Yeah, can we get, you know, I don't like to do a lot of producing up here, but can we get eyes? I need eyes on Lage. Where is he out on the track? Because I even saw him flip-flop with Box there, and that can't be right either. There's Box in 11th. And maybe he's just so far off the grid here that we don't even have him on the circuit.
Yeah, I do not know. We've got
I don't even think he's on the circuit.
And I wonder, I wonder about this one. Lots and lots of movement there. Same Lage is just in front. We can't see him on track. So this is, it looks like something's gone awry here towards the rear, and it's slowing Box down. It's looks like it's destroying Lage's race. Up ahead, Commando continues to lead. He started in pole position. This has been his moment to shine, and he's taking advantage of it.
Yeah, 7 is in second. Say that 3 times fast. But you know, another one that we might want to look at here is Rossi. He's sort of in the middle of the pack. Maybe hasn't had he didn't have had a good movement in that first race, climbing 8 spots. Is he in the conversation where here if he could battle up to the front, you know, could he collect some points here? And I think also a thing to look at, and I'd love to get your take on this, Ali, is this is a whole part of a series here. You're just trying to grab as many points as you can. You'd love to win. You know, the checkered flag's always the goal here, but the long-term view is grabbing as many points as you can.
It is, and all of these drivers have their mind entirely on that global leaderboard. They want to be up there beating other people and get themselves in the best possible position to take home the lion's share of $250,000. Vitality Asics there, just proving that with a little bit of a tough move into turn 1, really leaning his nose onto the quarter panel of Virus in order to get his car stopped. I wonder if he makes that move happen. It might have a sort of a slightly dim view of that from the marshals as Virus barely holds on through the Mercedes arena.
Kind of deep in thought over there, Tanner. What are you seeing out on the track?
Well, this is really what you hope to see when you invert a field, is somebody just slightly holding up a pack. And then just like snarling wolves behind that car, fighting for every single opportunity. Rather than having the car string out, they end up packing up. And it really is creating some fascinating racing. And everybody's staying very clean here, knowing that they're going to get judged later. And they're not going to be able to get away with anything. But still, a couple mistakes here, and we have a pass. And it really does make it dynamic, that's for sure.
With that Civic in the front-wheel drive, though, you even see like Zermatt was going to have an opportunity to come around on the inside with the rear-wheel drive that would have sort of propelled him through, but able to recover and keep your positioning.
Exactly. You don't get, with the front-wheel drive car, you don't get that little twist of body movement when you apply the power that allows you to just blast out of a corner like that. You're just going to find yourself understeering. If you put the power down and the front wheels spin up. I mean, just go back, though, to Tanner's point there as well about the way this pack bunches up. It's just like a champagne bottle. You know, you have this kind of slower driver who's a bit like a cork in that bottle, and everyone else behind gets more and more frustrated as you shake the whole thing up. And at some point, it's all going to go wrong. And that's definitely what we're seeing here, just halfway through the race. And that frustration is building up for all of those faster drivers.
All right, can we get eyes on Lage? I keep going back to that because on our ticker on the top here, he is in 8th position. He has climbed 4 spots. I think maybe we were a little bit of a ruse there at the beginning that we thought he was down. But it looks like he's now climbed up into 8th position.
Yeah, it looks to me like there's some kind of connection problem there getting Lage onto the screen for us. So we'll have to sort of assess later on, I think after the race results come in, exactly where he's finished. It's a super tricky position to be in that, though, for him. I've been in it myself before. So yeah, we'll have to just see where the cookie crumbs lie after this race with Lage, I think.
They think you're spot on there. Little technical difficulties in locking in on that camper position of Lage. We can't see him, but the racers out there can see him, and he's climbed up as high as number 8. Commando's still in front, 7th. 7 is in 2nd. And there's Europa riding around in 5th, sort of middle of the pack.
Yeah, Europa, I mean, he's someone we saw last month at the Invitational. He's a fast driver, known, you know, around the community as somebody who's very, very quick, but hasn't shone yet at a ForzaRC event. It's good to see him up there in 5th. I mean, there's nothing wrong with 5th position, right?
No, and of course, another thing with the inversion is the guy.
Oh, Zermatt there all over the place through the Schumacher S's. It looked like he must have picked up a little bit too much curb, bumping back down onto the track surface. Those stiff rear springs can really, really grab you.
They really do set these front-wheel drive cars up incredibly stiff, sometimes 1,000, 1,100-pound springs in the back. And, yeah, it makes them fairly dynamic off the curbs, that's for sure.
Dynamic is a word.
I love that word. Isn't it good?
Chemical started first, but now he's fallen back to 3rd place. We're in lap 5 of 7 here in our final race of the day for Europe. We still got North America coming up here on the Wednesday Showdown. It's going to be incredible. Series 1, it's going to be an amazing year in 2018 for Forza, especially for the Racing Championship.
You know, if this is like a little taster of what we've got to expect for the rest of the year, I'm in.
I'm in,
you know,
yeah.
Shut up and take my money.
Sign me up.
Yeah, this is incredible racing here down the straightaway. Everybody positioning for a spot. Just so difficult to keep all the cars on the track in this scenario. These guys are doing a great job.
Look at that, Mitch trying to outbrake Zermatt, but he's got Virus all over the front of him, and that just completely stops him from being able to run extra speed through the apex because he'll just collect Virus. In the end, Mitch makes that move happen. Zermatt's the one who's lost out, and he's tumbled back 3 positions there.
Box still holding there in 11th. Thought he had set himself up in a good position to maybe make a run to maybe be the points leader when all was said and done here. But he really has not been able to make any advancements, any moves, trying to push for 10th right now. Falls back to the 11th, pushing on the heels of Mitch, moving into the corner here. And there's just nowhere for him to go. I mean, this track is not meant for 3 wide. And just like that, you know, you get the 9th and 10th cars bumping, and Box maybe able to move in up all the way up into 9th.
I love this racing, all of them coming down towards Dunlop right now. It's this cambered right-hand hairpin. Zermatt, he's absolutely not bothered at all by being slipped down in the Mercedes arena earlier in this lap. He's straight back on the attack, giving JSR Mitch trouble and making that rear end squirm all over the place, as we saw. He's collected it now through the Schumacher S's, and these guys are heading towards the back of this lap. And for me, there's no difference now. They could end in any order at all, these 4.
Moving into turn 11 and 12 here on lap 6. Box has now been able to push himself all the way up into 8th position.
Amazing that Box was able to get through that pack, but he's not able to leave him. Even after Mitch and Virus are battling it out, Box is still not able to check out here. So it's incredibly even lap times, I think, between these cars. It's not just one person being blocked by the rest of them.
And somewhere in there is Lage. Riding along in 8th. See Virus falling all the way back to 11th now. Zermatt, we saw him make some mistakes, a little bit of carnage. He's found himself all the way back down to 12. He's all the way at the bottom of the pack. That's how quickly one mistake can drop you, you know, really 7 spots.
It's crazy, right? I mean, when you have this caliber of driver, you know, the 12 people out on track right now, although you wouldn't know it looking at that move from Zermatt, do represent some of the best talent on Forza, especially within the EMEA region. I mean, Zermatt there just showing how hungry you have to be to get to that kind of level, though. And it's that kind of a move that, you know, you have to throw on at this level of racing.
Well, that's 2 teammates right there. When you look at Zermatt and Box.
Box blew his opportunity there. That's where he made such a great move, a good outside-in move all the way up that straightaway, taking advantage. And there he hit the back bumper of Virus, and that took all his momentum away. So he's just got to wait another lap, and he doesn't have another lap. It's 7 of 7, so he's got to make something happen.
And that's why he's just round the outside here, choosing lines that you wouldn't choose to use if you were going to make a clean, quick, clinical overtaking move. You want to be up the inside. You want to be just like slicing it through there. Box instead looking for the hard way to do things, because Virus has his number and will block the apex every time Box offers.
Well, Virus is in a TPR sandwich here. You know, I know it's, when we talk about teams and the advantage here, would Zermatt here on this final lap maybe tap the brake a little bit more and maybe allow Box to maybe get an inside position?
Doesn't look like it.
I don't see it happening. I'm just posing the question.
I mean, maybe. You've got to remember, this isn't an individual competition, but there is a team leaderboard out there. I mean, it's for bragging rights, but bragging rights are pretty important. And TPR, a team newly reformed, will be looking to stake their claim.
Final lap here, Commando. Out on front. Let's see what the back of the pack can do. Going around these final turn 16, the Coca-Cola curve.
Virus powering down, and he's going to do both of those TPR names coming up towards the line, and it looked like he managed it. So Zermatt slipping back there. That's tough for him. It's tough for TPR. You know, they're a team that would kind of dominate in that battle, and just losing out on the last corner, it can all go wrong very quickly.
Box, certainly he didn't get to capitalize on a great move in lap 6. And just had the last lap just cost him, and where he led that pack of 4 so nicely, he just got shuffled back. It's really great racing.
I think the official results, so this one's going to be very interesting, especially with the reverse grid. You know, you kind of find yourself focusing more on the mid and the rear of the pack as far as the overall points leaderboard. But really, there was some absolute fine racing out on the front, and I think that proves so much of that. Getting the pole position, where you start on the grid, especially in these short sprint race kind of races, is really key. And that's why the speed of Lage and always having a 1 or 2 position start, that's the key to a lot of his success.
I love the reverse grid format, and the reason I love it is because we were talking about earlier how well every single one of these drivers has done to get to this final 12. And you can see that these drivers are, given the opportunity, any single one of them can win a race. They're all fast enough. They're all up there and good enough. And it's such tiny margins that make one driver look dominant in a different class altogether. But you put Lage at the back of the field, he doesn't shine, doesn't have that same thing that you kind of imagine him to have in ones where he leads from the front. It just shows that all of these drivers have a chance.
Let's take a look at the replay here in race number 3. You know, the interesting thing with this one is, let's say if the Honda would have been the second race, and this would have been a more powerful car here in the reverse grid on the race 3, would that have been enough power for someone like Lage to make some of those classic moves and move up more? But was it being so packed up, so bottlenecked? We talked about the packs, Tanner. Maybe this Honda in the race 3 really didn't show the drama we could have had in a reverse grid.
Potentially, but I just think it's a different skill set. It's a different type of racecraft. And you saw Box was masterful at waiting for the pack of 3 in front of him to work out their mess, and then he shortened the track on one turn and passed them all. So there's a great skill there, and so I kind of like the diversity, honestly, of you know, the high horsepower rear-wheel drive cars and then the more momentum front-wheel drive cars.
Well, let's take a look at the provisional results. If you were having a hard time keeping up where everybody was moving, this is how it finished unofficially. Commando was out on front. 7 was in second. Chemical third. Rossi there in fourth with Roadrunner. That was actually a pretty good battle that we missed a lot of between Rossi and Roadrunner. And you can see Box and Lage all the way down to the bottom. That's our unofficial results.
Race 1 winner, Lage. Race 1 second place Box. Race 2 winner, Lage. Race 2 second place Box, both at the rear of this field. That's completely mixed up the scoring table. I don't want to be the maths guy here. I'm not going to try. I'm not picking up. I'm not even going to look at the results that scroll down there. It's because I have no idea who's won this.
You know, we talked about that. You know, the majority of the points are on the top of the leaderboard. So if you finish 12th, Tanner, all of a sudden maybe you got a donut there.
Big donut. That's right. And you know, I honestly have to go back to probably what these guys were thinking when they saw the formats. They're thinking, okay, focus, push on the first 2 races. The inverted format is survival. This is going to be carnage. There's going to be a mess. So maximize the points, which I think, so even though he did get a donut in the 3rd race, I think Lage did his work in those first 2. We're just going to have to see if it's enough.
Well, we're going to step away for a moment. When we come back, we will have those official results of race number 3, and we can see who's got the bragging rights in Europe. Don't go anywhere. And we're back here in the studio here in Seattle. We've had some incredible racing today. We're still waiting on those official results of race number 3 and a little bit of wackiness here. And, of course, Tanner, it's been awesome having you here today. We're going to have you throughout without the broadcast, especially coming up in North America. What have you been up to?
Oh, started delivering pizzas again.
Yeah,
it's been great. Under 30 minutes guaranteed. No, I've been racing rallycross for the last few years, and been in China recently shooting TV shows.
Wow,
which has been an absolute blast. It's a real emerging market over there, as I know Forza is over there on PC, and the car industry is one of the largest in the world. Many times the size of the U.S. car industry. So it's natural that racing and all the things that we have passion in the automotive industry here in the U.S. and have for a long time, it's starting to grow there in kind of a big way.
And Alan, you were over there for China Joy, last season. You can see the passion not only for this game, but just overall, really racing in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely electric over there. You can feel the passion that the people have for, for automotive culture, for all that awesome stuff that we love. So it's great to be over there.
It's strange because, all the information about the automotive world going on in Europe and in nearby China and Japan, all different regions of the world, they have access. Everybody has access to that. Where when the automotive industry was just starting in the U.S., it was just sort of created on this island, just like when it started in Europe, it created on its island. And so there's such an interesting blend of automotive styles and cultures emerging in hyperspeed in China right now. It really is a fascinating thing to kind of observe.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to see almost like it's like a rebirth of maybe something that happened here in the States decades ago, is sort of seeing it again, happening it over in China. Now, you get out there and you actually race in the game. I'm not going to ask you to give your gamer tag out. Give it to me later just so I can say, I can tell Allie later on, beat Tanner again.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. Well, I'm doing a bounty hunter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, doing a bounty hunter. It's Sweet T Foust 34. That's F-O-U-S-T. Come kick my butt. It'd be great. Don't want any of these guys, coming out. But so we'll see what cars and tracks are doing here. But that's going out today, actually.
If I can beat you, can I get one of those steering wheels from Quantum Drift? That's
that's
all I want.
No. I'm not doing any if I can beat you bets, okay? I learned my lesson on that.
Let's take a look at these official results of race number 3. Sort of the pivot point of the day. You can see Commando getting the 20 points. Lage is actually going to end up with a donut. We sort of had those inclinations that we didn't really know what he was doing out on the track. He ends up finishing last. Box had moved up as high as 9th place, but just couldn't hold on there at the end.
Yeah, so that's the story of our sort of the people who are leading on points coming into this third race, really, really suffering here with the reverse grid. Their loss, though, as is always the case in motorsport, is someone else's gain. And JSR Commando, this guy who hasn't shone yet, hasn't been right there at the very top of the ForzaRC, he manages to take a win.
It gives him it's fascinating, the format, because everybody is so close that when you reverse it, I mean, it almost ended up in the starting order in reverse. That's how close the drivers are. So if Commando, knowing going into the first couple races where it's not reversed, knows that he can do something special and gain some points, then maybe have this big advantage in the reversed order. He could actually finish pretty well in the standings out of these 3 races.
But when you're out there on the real circuit, isn't this the case as well, that things are so razor thin that just a break either way, or a great pole position time to get yourself up in that, that top half of the pack, that could be the difference between whether you're in the winner's circle or you're all the way down at the bottom.
The type of racing that I've been doing for the last few years, rallycross, the start is absolutely critical. Passing is difficult. The races are only 6 laps, and the laps are only 30 seconds long. So it's these hyper sprint, the cars are insanely quick and hyperactive, but the races are also very quick. So in that type of racing, the start position is absolutely critical. And it's a standstill start. The cars are 0 to 60 in 1.9 seconds, and so reaction time is critical. In other racing, you see a lot of discipline here. And in the reverse format, I think the guys need to show a lot of discipline. Maybe not quite as much as we saw, but the aggression obviously gets penalized after the race when it goes under the eyes of the judges.
Let's take a look at the overall leaderboard through the first 3 races here in Europe. And it really was all about those first 2 races for Liège. You can see 20-20-0, but that's enough for a 9-point lead here over Box.
You're exactly right. He's managed to lean on those excellent results early on in the day in order to bring home victory, but it's not by much of a margin. It's not by a huge amount. You've got to keep in mind, we're not creating an EMEA leaderboard here. We're not all fighting amongst in Europe to find who qualifies for LAN events later on, who gets the big money. This is global. He's got the people on track that he's fighting against, but at the same time, he has to remember that there are people he can't see out there who are going to be winning races in LATAM, in Asia, in Oceanic, and then later on today, of course, in North America.
Yeah, we got the North America races coming up today at 6 p.m. out here on the West Coast. And sometimes, Tanner, second place isn't bad for Box. You set yourself up through these next couple of weeks that at least you're in striking distance of one of the best.
Second place sucks. It's no fun. It's better than third.
I'm tweeting that right now. Is that okay with you?
No, I mean, of course, you want to gather all the points you possibly can, but, man, you just can't help but what if this, and, Liège got 0. If I would have just finished in the top 5 on that, I would have first. And, so there's a lot of what ifs that go into it, but you gathered all the points you could. All you can do is try to be smart about the upcoming races.
Well, let's take a look. You talk about it's a long competition. We got a lot of racing that's coming up through the next couple of weeks. You can see it. Tanner said it looked like a baseball schedule, but this is really the meat of the competition here, Ali.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're tuned in and you're going like, how can I win points to get onto that leaderboard? The next event is going to be starting this Thursday, I want to say, and that's Booster Rivals over on Forza Motorsport 7. You can find that in the Rivals lobby there, just next to Tanner's his challenge as well. His
Go easy.
Bounty Hunter.
Go easy on me.
So maybe, you do one, do the other. And then, of course, we'll be kicking off after that next week with a whole new Rivals to qualify for races. And we'll be going around this process again. You'll be able to catch us bringing more shows in 2 weeks' time.
Of course, we'll be back this afternoon, but you saw from the schedule there, we got a ton of awesome shows right here from this studio. You saw the big events, London, etc. It's going to be an incredible season. We appreciate you guys being here. Tanner, it's been awesome. Don't go anywhere because we still have a lot of North America racing. Give me some final thoughts from what you saw in Europe.
It's just impressive. They bring a big game. We're going to see how the North Americans look racing these cars and these tracks. And, I can't wait to see everybody kind of come together on the same playground and see how it sorts out. Really, obviously, Liège, very impressive, but they've got a deep field in Europe. So we'll see how they stack up to North America.
Any surprises, any thoughts? I mean, we saw Rossi and Roadrunner maybe fall back to the middle of the pack.
I don't think it was so bad for Rossi and Roadrunner in the end, just because Liège failed to capitalize. He had it passed to him. He had an opportunity here to make a gap, and that gap, although he got a little bit of a one, wasn't as big as it could have been. So maybe just a little bit of a sigh of relief there for a few of the mid-pack guys.
Well, take a breather, make yourself a ham sandwich or 3 if you're me, and we're going to have a lot more racing coming up from North America later on today. We appreciate you guys being here. We'll see you in a few hours.